That was amazing, and hopefully you get a sense of. I talked earlier on about sort of where branded content's going. It isn't just about making branded content. There's things like product integration, there's IP licensing and sharing and that kind of thing, and there's a whole new world that's opening up, which leads us brilliantly on to Misha. So is Misha up next?
Misha's coming with me. I'm going to interview.
Oh, great. So Misha's one of the Cannes Lion judges. Her day job is she's VP Sport and Entertainment of MediaCom Worldwide. So please welcome Misha to the stage. Thank you.
Hi, I'm not Misha. Misha's just on his way now. Should we sit at this end, Misha? So my name's Louise Benson, and I'm the Executive Festival Director of Lions Entertainment, which is part of Cannes Lion. And for anyone who doesn't know, Cannes Lion has been running for over 60 years. It is the third biggest festival that takes place in Cannes every year, and it's a festival which began as a festival of advertising and has evolved into a festival of creativity. It's the third biggest festival in Cannes, but in fact the biggest in terms of food and drink spend for the city, because it's quite an exciting, fun festival to go to. And it began as a festival of advertising and was all about creative excellence in advertising, and was only for people from agencies until about 10 years ago, when brands started to get involved and really started to engaging with the power of creativity and its ability to drive business results. And so at that point, it evolved into a festival of creativity and really a festival of engagement and how you can use creativity to engage. And as part of that trajectory, which has been accelerated by all sorts of changes in advertising and entertainment, we launched Lions Entertainment last year, which was the part of the festival which brings the entertainment and the agency and client worlds together to talk about the way that entertainment can drive brands and can engage consumers in new ways. So partnerships are at the heart of that. And at the centre of the festival, it's an awards programme. And we have a jury, or the Lions Entertainment jury, which features people from across the industry, so people from Coca-Cola, Red Bull, A&E Networks, Activision, and ICM. And Misha, who is Global Head of Sport and Entertainment, is on this year's jury and is going to talk to us in a moment about some of the principles of creative excellence that he'll be looking for in the entries that come in. Misha, do you want to start by just letting us know a little bit about what you do at MediaCom? Working?
Hello. Okay, you can hear me. What do I do at MediaCom? So, we've heard so much over the past, for the past hour, how much the industry has evolved, and everyone's trying to keep up with what's going on, and we're no different in that regard. Our business is very different than it was, 5-6 years ago. We recognize that. We're in the business of finding the best way that our clients can connect with their consumers, right? So, what is the most effective communications and marketing solutions that we can offer them? And that's become a lot more difficult because obviously the technology and the way that consumers are behaving has changed at such a scale that's been difficult to keep up. So we have developed internally, just in the same way that many of our competitors as well, a sport and entertainment partnerships division, right? And our aim is to look at how our clients can potentially cut through some of this clutter and this complexity. And you hear these stats about 5,000 on any given day. People are exposed to 5,000 messages. So how can we enable our clients sort of cut through that, through all this sort of insight that we have within the business, and see if potential partnership in a sport and entertainment space, which is where people are very emotional and it's a natural environment for them to be in, where you're not necessarily interrupting them. If there is a way to navigate into that environment, and we can help to do that, and obviously understand how all of that fits within the client's broader communication plan, then that's our objective. So that's what we do. Everything from sort of identifying what's the right place for them to be in, going in and obviously working with many of our partners to create those partnerships. We have our own content division as well, production, and so on.
So we'll move on to the Entertainment Lions now, and you'll be joining the jury later this year. What will be your key criteria when you're judging creative excellence in the entries that you'll be viewing?
I think the entertainment is so broad. It's difficult to say what makes great entertainment. But I would say, for me, I think great entertainment needs to look at other great entertainment award shows. So not necessarily advertising shows or creative shows. So really sort of at the top end, what makes great entertainment? And I think there are two things, right? And it's not exclusive to these two things, but I think it comes down to, one is the story, and the other one is the craft. And the story is all about how a particular piece of entertainment or content fits within the current state of the world. So is it a piece of is it cultural commentary? Is it or does it have some sort of or did it have impact on on popular culture? It's really, really important. You look at recent examples at the Oscars, right? You had White Helmets who won an Oscar for short form documentary. This is what it's all about, because you have the entire world talking about Syria and Syrian refugee crisis, and this was a take on that. This was a way of telling that story in a way, in a different way, and it's something that people could relate to. Same with Moonlight, for that matter. A year ago, everyone was saying that Hollywood was so far up their own asses that that a black actor or movie like that, especially with La La Land being the favorite, could never win. And it did, and I think it did because, again, in terms of the cultural context and the way that it was delivered was really was brilliant. So that's one. And this the second one is craft, and craft is in how that story is actually delivered, and I think that's what makes great entertainment. Now, in advertising, we talk about advertising is really about a great idea, right? And we like to stroke the creative egos of people, right? But entertainment is when a lot of brilliant people come together to create something. That for me is important. And so if you look at those, that criteria, the great entertainment shows, award shows, the pieces of work that do the best are the ones that tell us a story that we haven't, perhaps we haven't heard before, in the way that we haven't experienced, right? So, and I think when it comes to branded entertainment, that's how brands should approach it as well. They should make sure they have an audience, their viewer in mind, and try to deliver a story or an experience, or tell a story in a way that someone hadn't experienced before, and give them a different look into it.
So I think you've selected a couple of pieces of winning work from the last couple of years from the entertainment category. So if we could run the first video, the Under Armour video, please, and then maybe you could give us a couple of words about what you think makes that special.
Under Armour's uber-masculine image prevented it from connecting with women. I Will What I Want was created to change that by celebrating all women, defying expectations, and ignoring the noise of outside judgments. To prove that will beats noise, we signed a woman we knew would be judged, supermodel Gisele Bündchen. We announced the unlikely partnership, and as we anticipated, everyone had something to say.
Supermodel Gisele joining the apparel brand Under Armour.
So we took people's real comments and used them in our TV ads, just 2 days later. Regardless of the noise, Gisele remains focused, willing what she wants. Our web experience then became a live social experiment. A custom engine scraped the web for comments made about Gisele. For the first time, the entire social discussion about a single person was happening on one website in real time. proving will beats noise. Live.
The new face of Under Armour's I Will What I Want campaign, Gisele Bündchen.
Will what you want is creating what you want, is not listening to the outside noise and just manifesting what it is that you want in your life. Put one leg up.
No.
Yes!
The campaign featuring Gisele made uber-masculine Under Armour a symbol of female athletic aspiration, generating 1.5 billion media impressions, over $15 million in earned media. Traffic is up 42%, and sales are up 28%. And Under Armour is now the second largest sports apparel brand in the U.S. It's the most successful campaign in the brand's 16-year history, with a message every woman can make her own. I will what I want.
Yeah, so I love that. I love that piece of work because my background is more in sport, more recently entertainment. But this is brilliant just because it's in the context of what's going on and around us. There's such a big movement about empowerment and speaking to women in a way that they that genuinely connects and relates to them. And oftentimes use talent just to sort of put them up there because they've got they have X amount of millions of social media followers, or because Gisele's beautiful and so on, and you kind of go, oh, okay, I don't get it. There's not really a story. It's not really. I mean, this has everything, right? So even the way they've approached talent, the way they've put her up there, they said, look, she's a model, yet she's the way she's being judged is the same way that many women who would watch this could relate to on an everyday basis. And I think that's great content, is one that people can watch and say, I can relate to that. I think the more recent This Girl Can. My wife's a lawyer, and she's one of the most cynical. When it comes to these things, quite cynical. So it gives me a hard time working in this industry. But she'd watch something like that, and I can see that when you create something that is real and raw and genuine and authentic, people will connect to it, and I think you have to sort of, and that's what they did in the way that they delivered that with, with imposing obviously the messages in real time and all of that, just the creative execution and all of that. So this is where a lot of different elements come together with the brand and the story and the talent. Delivered kind of seamlessly. I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, and as Peter touched on, I think when kind of you really engage with audiences, then you can start making it's a very efficient way of doing business, because your fans become your distribution platforms, and it's got a much longer, more resonant opportunity in the market than something if you're just paying to disrupt with an ad. Okay, so that was a Silver Lion winner in 2015, and we're going to go to last year's Grand Prix now, which is just an exceptional piece of work. So if we could run the second video, please, New York Times.
In April 2015, the New York Times declared at their second annual New Fronts presentation that VR journalism will have the same bright future as photography did 119 years ago, with the debut of their first virtual reality experience, Walking New York. Having successfully expanded into the digital landscape over the past 20 years, the Grey Lady wanted to maintain its command at the forefront of how we consume news and built the NYT VR app. For the app's launch, the New York Times collaborated with our virtual reality creators once again to create The Displaced, a new virtual reality experience that places viewers directly inside the global refugee crisis. VR creator Imran Ismail and New York Times journalist Ben Solomon went to South Sudan, Ukraine, and Syria to follow 3 children as they navigate through the largest refugee crisis since World War II. By 2015, more than 60 million people worldwide have been driven from their homes by war and persecution, roughly half of whom are children. For the launch of the NYT VR app, the New York Times premiered The Displaced at a mass demo this last November in New York. The following Sunday, over 1 million subscribers received complimentary New York Times-branded Google Cardboards with their Sunday paper, giving them the opportunity to empathize and experience the devastation of the refugee crisis firsthand, an idea considered unattainable in journalism until the advent of VR. With The Displaced, millions of people, both young and old, were not only exposed to their first VR film, but through this timely convergence of technology and journalism, lent an entirely new perspective to what has already become one of the most pivotal events of this century. Thousands shared the experience on social media with the hashtag NYTVR, and media outlets worldwide praised the film and its creators, declaring VR's arrival into the mainstream. Within the first 3 days of its release, the NYTVR app had been downloaded more times than any other app in the publication's history. Less than 6 months later, the New York Times has now made VR a priority, changing the way we get our news for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, another phenomenal piece of work, and it's just, again, a great way, great partnership, very authentic in terms of what New York Times is all about, what they wanted to say, how they're looking. As I said earlier, it's the story and the craft. The story is great because this is something we've been hearing about for years. But if you're honest, and especially in the States, you're quite far away from a lot of these places, right? It's you open the paper, or you would have opened the paper for the last however long this has been going on for the last 5-6 years, and sort of how much are you really genuinely connecting with what's going on, or how is your experience of consuming that story or that news has evolved? It probably hasn't, and it's difficult to do. So. One of the things I liked about that is just it's also brave. VR is not the answer for everything, obviously, but it does work in this context, and looking for ways of, okay, how can we constantly evolve? How can we connect with our audience who are curious, who perhaps one of the biggest things about the story is that we do feel quite far removed. I mean, it's going on somewhere far away. We know it's terrible, but being able to put your reader, no matter where they are in the world, being able to put them right at the heart of that conflict and have them experience that for a minute. So create that sort of emotional environment, which is difficult to do, but now with technology, we're able to do that. I just think, I think it's great. So, again, seeing those elements present and having that all come together in a way that it's just seamless. I mean, that's kind of what perfect kind of branded partnership is for me.
I think a lot of the entries you're going to see this year are going to be the outputs of partnerships between agencies and media owners, partnerships between entertainment companies and brands, all sorts of different partnerships, many of which are quite virgin territory, and they can be really hard to do, which I think is one of the reasons why this is an industry which is still quite nascent. In your experience, can you give some advice on what makes a successful partnership and how to kind of avoid some of the pain that can be involved?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the question you've got to ask yourself, at the end, when all said and done, will someone choose to watch this content ahead of their favorite TV show, the vlog, their favorite vlog, they're following their favorite people on Instagram and so on. That's what you're trying to do. It's a really difficult thing to do, but if you're trying to create something excellent, and you think that your work is worthy of an award, then you've got to answer that. The question's got to be yes. And if the question is no, then it's not right. So I think above all else, I think the authenticity is key, because consumers are becoming so clever and a bit cynical as well when they know they can spot bullshit from a mile away. So if you're looking at if you're looking at putting a brand at the heart of the content, you have to think about how seamless and how authentic does that come across, and just be honest with yourself, because if you think that it's not quite there, then the chances are that the viewers will be switching off. I think the other thing is to try. I think we as much as we can, we have to try to think less about the consumer and more about the viewer, right? Because oftentimes we have with all marketers where we have to drive results and so. But at the end of the day, if we approach it from this is what the viewer will like, this is the experience, this is what they will enjoy, rather than we're trying to target a consumer and so on, I think that makes a difference. So trying to be and be brave. I think you have to sort of at the end of the day you have to stand out. So try things that perhaps haven't been tried before, if it makes sense. If whether that's the story that you tell, or whether that's technology that you use. In the case of VR, whether that's talent that someone might say, I wouldn't have. Maybe wouldn't have put them there. But again, if you feel it's right, like in the case of Giselle, that could have gone completely the other way. People could have been quite cynical about it. But just be quite brave about it. Yeah, that's.
Thank you. I've been told I've got to wrap up now, but I'm just going to close on the final slide with just some top tips. If you are interested in entering Cannes Lion, I'm just going to whiz through some tips, which is really worth considering when you're making your case films and putting your entries in. The first of which is that it's really worth being concise. Our jurors will watch up to 250 case films in a day before they reach a shortlist. So in order to be effective with the judges and not to really kind of stress them out, keep your story concise and try and tell that story quickly. And the second one is tell a story. Remember to tell a story. Creative people working in advertising are good storytellers, but often our jurors give the feedback that the story isn't very effectively told. Don't forget that it's an international festival, so we've got jurors from all over the world. It's essential to set the cultural context for the entry and not assume that people will understand it already. Trying to take a fresh perspective if you can. Often you're so embedded in the work that you've been producing that it's quite difficult to step back and tell the story of it to somebody who perhaps isn't familiar with it. So try and sort of take a fresh perspective and step back. And finally, category selection is all. We have quite complex categories, so we have a number of different awards and many subcategories within them. We have a team of people on hand. If you want any advice on where to put your entries and how to get it to sing in the jury room, please do get in touch. So that's your tips from Lions Entertainment from the awards perspective. Thank you.
Right, that's it. We're 10 minutes only over. Thank you so much to all our panellists, our guest speakers, contributors. It's been a real kind of overwhelming sense of information and inspiration this morning. I hope you've all enjoyed it. The one thing I'm really pleased about is that maybe we can park the word engagement. I think the word engagement has been overused, overhyped. I love Peter's word engineering. So let's all go forth and engineer. Thank you very much for coming.